Okay, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. Well, our guest this morning is Ajuri Ingilale. He's in our Abuja studio, Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Affairs. He's also the he's an assistant principal spokesperson for the Tinubu Shettima Presidential Campaign Council. A fine morning to you, Ajuri, after that mouthful, but I had to do it correctly.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to our esteemed viewers.
Indeed. Great to have you. It's been quite a while. We're in the middle of it right now. Very, very shortly, we shall be going to the electorate, and in a very, in very little time, we'll be knowing indeed who will be taking over from President Muhammadu Buhari among the field of contestants for that highly esteemed job. So, of course, the question comes up as to whoever indeed takes over the office, through the electorate, will be building on the achievements of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Now, you've been working, I just described you as the Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Affairs. How much has been done? As you know, a nation's work is never done. How much has been done such that whoever is taking over can feel in a very, very good place for having taken over from Muhammadu Buhari?
Thanks once again, Uncle Yori. I think the major element here to appreciate is that within the context of two economic recessions and a once-in-a-century global pandemic, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari has truly laid the foundation for modern Nigeria. And the way he's done so is by really prudently managing the very limited and scarce, oil and gas earnings, really moving aggressively into agriculture and manufacturing, really trying to ensure that we get as many revenue generation sources as possible. Obviously, the news yesterday was from the Federal Inland Revenue Service that we were able to cross 10 trillion naira, 10.1 trillion naira for the 2022 financial year, which is, of course, a historic record-breaking quantum of resource from the FIRS. I think that's indicative of the fact that we have made very wise investments, and we're starting to see a return on those investments. Let me say that when we discuss the issue of infrastructure, you're really looking at a cross-sectoral set of infrastructural investments that will have multifarious impact, not just over the next few years, but over the next several decades. Let's start from the fact that from 2015, before 2015, there was not a single high-speed standard gauge rail line in operation in this country. Today, there are three. The Lagos-Abeokuta-Ibadan Railway, of course, well known to Nigerians living in that axis. The Warri-Ajeokuta-Itakpe rail line, 326 kilometers, linking the south-south to the north-central. And then, of course, the Abuja to Kaduna rail line, which we are aggressively expanding up to Kano as we speak. Before 2015, you did not have a single new international airport terminal in operation in this country. Today, there are essentially 5. You have the new Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport that was opened in 2017. The new Murtala Mohammed International Airport Terminal opened at the end of last year, or the middle part of last year. The new Port Harcourt International Airport opened in 2018, and the new Aminu Kano International Airport that has since been opened for traffic recently, but will soon be formally commissioned. And then, of course, the Kano Ibiam International Airport in Enugu will be opened over the next several months. The point here is whether it is airport or even seaport, where we have the new Lekki Deep Sea Port, which President Muhammadu Buhari inaugurated and commissioned just yesterday. The first deep sea port built in Nigeria in over 40 years was started and completed under this administration, which is not an accident. And we're moving aggressively to other seaports, the new Badagry Seaport, as well as the new Ibom Deep Sea Port in Akwa Ibom, and others. Then, of course, if you look at roads and bridges across this nation, you're going to see several infrastructural interventions. If you look at the southwest, for example, where you have aggressive work going on the Oyo-Ogbomosho Road, where we are about to also complete the massive Lagos-Shagamu-Ibadan expressway, abandoned for 40 years. We have reconstructed it, expanded it, and also added new interchanges. If you look at the Apapa-Oworonshoki Tollgate Road that we've expanded to effectively 10 lanes using cement technology, you would see how we've been able to open up the Apapa port access with that. In addition to the fact that if you look across the country, the second Niger Bridge, the 300 billion naira investment in the southeast, really unlocking the commercial potential of that region by creating linkages between the southeast and the rest of the country. In addition to that, you have massive work that's gone on the Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway, Aba-Port Harcourt Expressway, Onitsha-Enugu is being reconstructed by MTN under Presidential Executive Order 7, road tax credit and road refurbishment scheme. There's so much going on. And then, of course, very quickly, if you look at the north, you're looking at the Abuja-Kaduna-Zaria-Kano Expressway, in addition to the Kano-Katsina Expressway going deep into the northwest. And then, of course, the Kano to Maiduguri Expressway, moving from the northwest deep into the northeast. So you find that across this country, the infrastructural interventions have been such that we are unlocking the commercial capabilities of this country, ensuring that we facilitate effective import-export flows, ensuring that we link all regions of this country to be able to take advantage and leverage on the comparative advantages of each of the geopolitical zones of the country across agriculture, manufacturing, and so many others. These are really exciting times, and I think President Muhammadu Buhari, and I've just only mentioned 30% of what he has done over the last 7 years, with half the revenues that previous administrations had in half the time that previous administrations had. I believe that this will all make up the foundation stone of what will be modern Nigeria, to be delivered by God's grace, by His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Indeed. Thank you, Ajuri. And whereas there's no denying the developmental achievements of the PMB administration, there are also areas that indeed, should the country vote for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there are things he's going to have to be fixing. Inflation is one thing. You might say that that's hardly anyone's fault, because there was a time when we were actually looking a bit good in terms of monetary policies and all of that. At one time, I think we were described as something like the strongest economy in Africa. A lot was made about it by you, your good self, and many colleagues. But now we have a situation where everybody is complaining. Your naira is probably half as strong as it was when Buhari took over. In the Bukateria, what you could do with 200 naira at that time, you can only do with, with about 500 naira today. That's where it relates to the ordinary person. Apart from that, as you know, the dollar has managed to climb to 74, 75 naira, 740, between 740 and 750 to the dollar. These areas, what exactly happened? Because what's your understanding and your read? Because if it could have been fixed, PMB's administration would have fixed it. What exactly is going on there?
You're absolutely right, Yori, in saying that if it's something that Mr. President could have forestalled, he certainly would have forestalled it. I think the first point is to acknowledge the fact that whenever you have a crisis, external shocks, whether it's coming from the vicissitudes of the global economic environment in which you have around the world, not just in Nigeria, rising interest rates to really tamp down international inflation rates that are rising around the world, both in developed economies as well as developing economies. Everybody is facing the tough conditions brought by the twin troubles of the recovery that is yet to fully conclude from the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, and what that has meant for energy prices, what that has meant for even the global supply chains around food production and export. So there are a lot of issues in the global economy leading to rising inflation, rising interest rates, rising unemployment around the world. Even the U.S. economy, it appears, is moving toward recession, in addition to many others. So certainly Nigeria Nigeria is not operating in a silo. It is going to be affected by the energy crisis. It's going to be affected by the distortion in global supply chains. But what we are telling our people, and this is why His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has really named this campaign the Renewed Hope Campaign. It is not in any way a suggestion that President Muhammadu Buhari has fallen short or has not done well. It's an acknowledgement of the reality of the global economic environment in which we're operating and the fact that we have to move very aggressively to forestall some of the more adverse impacts of that, of these phenomenon on the Nigerian economy. Now, on the currency question, you've rightly alluded to the issue of devaluation, which of course has been paramount on the minds of our people, and rightly so. It is in the interest of President Muhammadu Buhari and the ruling All Progressives Congress for the Naira to be strong. It is in the interest of anybody who is in government, and even in the interest of our people, of course, for the Naira to be strong. That would be what we would be campaigning on. So if the Naira has fallen, the question is, why has it fallen? Why hasn't the president stopped it? Mm-hmm. Understand this. Any country, and I want to, anybody can verify this. When there are external shocks, whether caused by global economic conditions or otherwise, there's only one way to bolster your currency at a time of shock, right, or crisis. And the way you do that is by cash injection. You buffer your currency with an injection of your foreign exchange that you've been able to keep away, whether in a sovereign wealth fund or whether in an excess crude account or an excess savings account or your foreign reserves. Wherever you are sourcing your foreign exchange from, your buffer, that is where you will now extract from. The problem we had was that President Muhammadu Buhari came into office in 2015. And between 2004 and 2015, there was an excess crude account that had inflows of up to 107 billion US dollars. By the time Mr. President entered office, 105 billion US dollars had been spent out of that 107 billion dollars, leaving 2 billion in that account. The foreign reserves had been drawn down from the Obasanjo era of about $60 billion down to about $27 billion, barely enough to cater for the needs of the nation in case of a global economic emergency for about 5 months. So essentially at the shallow end of the pool, so to speak. There was no, wealth fund or savings from which we were in a position to draw from to be able to bolster our currency. So naturally it is going to slide, and it's sliding, it has. So this is the situation. And then on top of that, my dear brother, if you look at a place like Japan now, where the dollar is very strong, so all of these other countries that are under the weather, so to speak, of the global economic situation, they are fighting now, bolstering their currency. Japan spent $34 billion in the month of October. I didn't say in 2022. In the month of October alone, the Japanese government spent $34 billion to bolster the Japanese yen against the US dollar to maintain their currency value. So what is going to be the situation of a country like ours, where we had, administrators stealing the money, signing out $300 million, billions of dollars from the Central Bank of Nigeria before Mr. President came into office, reserves depleted across the board. Naturally, we have to go through the painful process of watching our currency slide, and that has been one of the very sad points in what has otherwise been a very positive set of developments for the Nigerian state in terms of infrastructure and social investment under President Muhammadu Buhari's watch.
Mm. You touched on something I also want to talk about, because when President Muhammadu Buhari was coming into office, all Nigeria was agog, that, yep, now we got something, we got someone who can confront those seemingly especially Nigerian problems. I'm talking about corruption here. When I said you touched on it briefly, I'm talking about corruption here. People had felt that Muhammadu Buhari would indeed put paid to corruption. He here was a military man. He's explained to us that he's a Democrat now, but here was a man who was not going to stand for nonsense and would bring corruption to the levels where we know that it has been affected. I don't know what your opinion is, but it is being said commonly that the fight against corruption, whereas it might have been addressed, many would think that they have not seen the impact of it in terms of, yeah, maybe you can't wipe it out, but you can bring it down to a level where where everybody knows that government is not playing. But it does look in some areas as if things are going on as before. that's one of the things that Tinubu is going to come and have to try his hand at, because it's always easier when you're on the outside. This is what should be done. This is how it should do. Why aren't they doing this? But that, again, it seems to me, is one of the things that a Tinubu administration, should he be elected, is going to have to come and deal with. So there's a sense in which the hope that Buhari would radically affect corruption. I don't know what your estimation is as to how well it has gone.
This is really a multi-pronged issue in the sense that, on the one hand, there really needs to be two modes of battle when we talk about the war on corruption. One is preventative, and one is reactionary. You have to react to corrupt practices that have already been undertaken. Then you need to work hard also to ensure that on the preventative leg, you put in place the procedures and the reforms necessary to ensure that you forestall future corrupt practice. Let me get to each one. On the issue of asset recovery, I can state empirically, without any emotion or sentiment, that President Muhammadu Buhari has done more in the asset recovery space of the anti-corruption war than any previous civilian, military, or set of civilian administrations combined. We know, as a matter of empirical fact, that between 2009 and 2019, that's a 10-year period, that in terms of just Naira recoveries by the EFCC, that's not including pounds, dollars, euros, land allocations, plots of land and all of that, CFOs and all of that. But in terms of Naira recoveries, the EFCC recovered 1.2 trillion Naira between 2009 and 2019, a 10-year period. Between 2009 and 2015 of that period, the EFCC had only recovered 230-something billion Naira. Right? Meaning that under President Muhammadu Buhari's administration from 2015 to 2019, the first 4 years of the administration, we had recovered a 939 billion Naira out of 1.2 trillion. Meaning that the first 6 years, only about 20-something% of it was done. We tripled that rate during the first 4 years of our administration as against the previous 6 years. And not to speak of what we've done up until 2023. And again, that is not including dollars, pounds, euros, and others. So the point here is that on asset recovery, we have done far more than any combination of civilian administrations combined when it comes to getting back the assets stolen from the Nigerian people and then now leveraging on those assets to put in place infrastructure for the Nigerian people. Like the second Niger Bridge was funded by recovered loot. The Lagos-Shagamu-Ibadan Expressway, funded by recovered loot. The Abuja-Kaduna-Zaria-Kano Expressway, funded by recovered loot. So that's one end. On the other end, my brother, on the preventative side, I think it is worth noting. Sometimes I believe that there's a tendency towards short memory on the public analysis of some of the issues as we analyze the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. What do I mean? People forget how bad it was, quite simply. Before 2015, we were all in this country between 2010 and 2015, where it seemed like every week there was a new scandal from a new ministry, department, or agency under Goodluck Jonathan's federal government. There was a new thing. If it wasn't a recruitment scandal of immigration service, it was Ministry of Aviation scandal, diversion of funds, using funds meant for one purpose to buy bulletproof cars, theft from the Ministry of Finance, theft from the central bank. I mean, it was just endless scandals, some of them directly involving the incumbent president at that time. There has not been a single instance in which President Muhammadu Buhari or any of his family members has ever been implicated in anything like a corruption scandal, in any kind of wayward practice. Nothing. You may have beer parlor gist, somebody will say, oh, this is happening or that is happening, but nothing concrete, nothing serious. So I guess the point is that we've come a long way. What His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's next stage is going to be is really going to be the preventative side, dealing with the fact that today in Nigeria, and he's talked about this quite openly, today in Nigeria, we ask Nigerians to pay upfront in cash for a house. We ask Nigerians to pay upfront in cash for a car. We ask Nigerians to pay upfront in cash for large appliances like freezers and refrigerators and all of these kind of things. Where we are now is a situation in which His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, understanding that, is saying, look, We need to prevent corruption by removing the motivation that makes Nigerians have to look for money outside of their legitimate incomes to live a better life. So what we are going to do is to establish a consumer credit system under His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in which we will be able to use the Central Bank of Nigeria to provide enhanced monetary policy ratios and enhanced interbank settlement offers to banks across the country to unlock trillions of naira worth of affordable credit for onward lending and distribution to the low-income and middle-income earning Nigerians, so that they can have access to affordable mortgages within their legitimate incomes. Instead of having to worry about paying 1 year's rent upfront, paying for a house and car upfront, you will now be able to say, look, you come to the bank. If you are a woman in a market stall and you're selling textiles, you'll be able to come to the bank and say, here are my bank records. For the last 5 years, I can prove to you that I have a steady income of a median income of 100,000 naira per month. On the basis of that evidence, the bank will now say, okay, we will now give you a mortgage of 20,000 naira per month, where you can have your 5 million naira house, a social house of 5 million naira, 2 bedrooms or whatever, right? And then you now pay your 20,000 naira a month while you're living in that house. Instead of having to pay up the full amount first, you'll be living in it as you're paying on it, enhancing your quality of life. And we're going to do the same thing with automobiles, same thing with large appliances, so that low-income and middle-income Nigerians, whether you're a civil servant, whether you're self-employed, as long as you have evidence of steady earnings, we're going to provide these credit facilities so that Nigerians can have access to those things which for decades now only elites have had access to.
Indeed.